Hello friends, I am Shivaji Bhaskar, Faculty of Russian at the School of Foreign Languages, IGNOU. I welcome you all to this course, Basics of Russian Communication Skills Part 1. As you are aware that in this course we have discussed about the basics of Russian, we have discussed about the Russian alphabet, we have discussed about the various combination of vowels and consonants, we have discussed about the words, word combinations and expressions. We have also discussed about the greetings, verbs and verbs of motion. Now, if you remember in the previous module, we have discussed about the usage of case system in Russian, as case system is a very important part of the Russian grammar because it is the case system with the help of which we make sentences which gives meanings to our communication. So, as you know that we have 6 cases in Russian, from nominative, accusative, dative, then we have the genitive case and the instrumental case. So, these 6 cases, the nominative case, the prepositional case, accusative case, dative case, as well as the genitive case and the instrumental case, they always have their set of questions. The set of questions which we have are as simple as что это and кто это in именительный падеж, whereas где and куда we use in the prepositional case and глаголы движения, whereas we use кого чего in the accusative case, кому we use in the dative case, and we use of expression in the genitive case where we use to ask the question or possession. Then we have the instrumental case where we have questions, scam, stem and etc., where we actually indicate towards an instrument for fulfilling a certain process. So now we are going to discuss these questions like где, where we have the prepositions like va and na. Likewise, you have also seen certain cases where we have specific cases in which we have these kind of questions like кого чего, кому чему, сколько, много, мало, as well as с кем, с чем. So these kind of general questions are of importance in Russian. Now let's go ahead and pay attention to some of the important aspects where we will see that how in the prepositional case we use the predlog or the preposition va and na, because in order to understand it well we need to understand when and how to use the prepositions like va and na, and these examples you can learn by heart and use them in your own expressions. So the prepositions va can be used as Petersburg, Hyderabad, Gorje, Centre, Klube, Universitete and Institute. Na you can use na stagione, na večere, na zavode, na fabrike, na počte, na stolе, na конкурсе and na examine. Now let's learn the meaning of these. St. Petersburg, it means in St. Petersburg. Hyderabad, in Hyderabad. Gorje, in the city. Centre, in the center. Klube, the club. Universitete, in the university. And Institute, in the institute. You can also use certain verbs which we have already discussed in the previous modules, that each and every case has a number of verbs which are largely used in that case. Like in prepositional case, you see that we use the verb like жить, где, St. Petersburg, Hyderabad, Gorje, Centre города, Klube, Universitete and работать. Где он работает? Он работает в институте, в университете, в клубе, в центре, в городе, в Хайдарабаде, в Петербурге, etc. So these kind of questions you can very well use in the construction of sentences in the prepositional case while using verb. And now pay attention to the usage of na in the prepositional case. As we already know, na stagione, na vecere, na zavole, na fabbriche, na pochte, na stalier, na concurse, na examine. How do we use them? Na means on or at. Na stagione, at the stadium. Na vecere, at the party. Na zavole, at the plant. Na fabbriche, at the factory. Na pochte, at the post office. So for na pochte we can use at the post office. If the question is на почте, где работает ваш друг? Мой друг работает на почте, на фабрике, на заводе. So accordingly you have to use this construction usage of the preposition na. Okay. Now let's go ahead and pay attention to the rest of the words. So the preposition va like musée, théâtre, magazine. So these kind of questions you can also frame while using these nouns like musée, théâtre and magazine. It changes into musée, théâtre, magazine. For example, где будет программа, where we will be have the program, в музее, в театре. Где можно купить этот вещь, where we can find this thing, or где можно купить рубашку в магазине, where we can buy the shirt in the shop. Likewise, we have на стене, на концерте, на стуле. Где лежит мой портфель? Ваш портфель лежит на столе, на стуле, and etc. Где висит картина? Where the painting is hung? На стене, on the wall. So, на концерте, at the concert. Где можно слушать музыку? Музыку можно слушать в концерте, на концерте, at the concert. So these kind of question we can frame and answers can be used while using the prepositions na. I hope the concept of va and na is absolutely clear to you. Now let's pay attention to some of the questions and answers with which help of we can understand the usage of где. For example, for masculine singular nouns, answering the question где, how do we do that? We can use где живет ваш друг. So друг is a masculine gender noun. Мой друг живет в Лондоне. London changes into в Лондоне. В Америке, в Франции. Why Франции? Потому что why? Because Francia, masculine gender? No. It's a female gender noun, that is why Franci ends with ya, changes into Franci. If it is a America, changes into America. So likewise you have to keep remembering the facts and fundamentals of the Russian grammar in case of these case system. Then you have question где работает его отец? Его отец работает на заводе. So here we are using the preposition na for na zavode, at the factory. Where does his father work? His father works at the factory or at the plant. You can change like that. Then где находится музей? Where is the museum located or situated? Музей находится в центре. The museum is situated at the center. So the most important thing here is that for towns, countries, normally the preposition va is used. So this is a very important information that whenever you have any town or you have any country, St. Petersburg, London, alright, so normally we use va. But in case of certain important nouns like na stagione, na zavode, na fabbriche, we have a specific place of the predlog or the preposition as na while using these particular nouns. So you have to be very careful about the usage of these nouns which are used only with na and not with va. Another important aspect here is that in these all sentences we have used verbs like reach, работать and находиться. So reach, работать and находиться, we have the certain aspect of usage of где. Где живет, где работает, где находится. So these verbs are basically used in the prepositional case. So one thing is again clear to you that these verbs are largely used in the предложные падеж. Okay, now let's go ahead, let's see. In this case we will see the usage of a singular noun. For example, in nominative the university is universitet, but in the prepositional it changes into universitete. Где учится ваш брат? Where does your brother study? Мой брат учится в университете. My brother studies in the university. Что это? Это университет. Где в университете. So this is the basic difference, how the ending of the noun of the masculine gender in prepositional case changes into ye at the end. So universitet remains universitet plus ye. So ye is added at the end of the masculine noun. So this is clear. So whichever word of the masculine gender which has the hard ending is changes into ye. So we plus ye at the end of that noun. So this fundamental is clear. Now let's go to the next word. In this list you can see many words in the nominative form as well as in the form of the prepositional case while using va and na. So we have certain words like gorad, institute, magazine, center, shtat, bazaar, zavod, stol, stool, etc. So if you look at these words are very normal words which we already learned about and know the meaning, but another important thing is that depending upon their gender, depending upon their ending in the preposition, they also change. How? Now let's see. Gorad, masculine, singular, changes into goraje. Institute, again masculine, singular, institute. Magazine, magazine. Center, centre. Shtat, shtate. Bazar, na bazare. So in this particular case, if you see that bazar, which means market or bazaar, changes into na bazare, at the bazaar, at the bazaar. Zavod, na zavode, na zavoje, means at the factory or at the plant. Stol, na stalye, stool, na stulye. So these are very specific usage of such words which we use in Russian, where we are already sure there is a fact, there is a fundamental thing that we can only use these words either with va or na. They cannot be changed as and when we require. No. The most important thing is to remember these, that if it is a town or a place or if it is a name of a country, we always use va. If we have zavod, bazar, stol, stool, fabrika, so these are used with na. So this is absolutely clear. Now let's go to the next list of the words we have. Stool, urok, zapad, vastok, sever, yug. So another thing is very clear, that if you have urok, zapad, vastok, sever and yug, so these four are directions: north, south, east, west, like this. So we have zapad means west, vastok means east, sever means north and yug means south. So you can also use these direction with the predlog or the preposition na, only na. Na yuga zapada, na yuga zapada, na vastok zapada, na sever yuga. These kind of expressions you can also make, but make sure that you use only na with them. Whereas stool and stole, na, as well as urok can also be used with na. Na urokya, na urokya. So now everything is clear in this list of words. Now we will go ahead and pay attention to some of the words of the masculine gender which ends with soft sign. As we have seen that with the ending of the soft sign, there are certain words which are of feminine gender as well. So in order to understand this aspect, we have to learn these words by heart, that which are the words which are of masculine gender. So in this case, let's see. The first one is portfel, briefcase. Portfele changes into gijia. Slavar changes into slavarye. Spectacle changes into na, spectacle. So there is a difference that we have to be very careful. If it is slavar or dictionary, slavarye in the dictionary. Portfel, briefcase, in the briefcase, portfolio. Spectacle, spectacle changes into na, spectacle. So at the play or spectacle, like this. Now let's go ahead and pay attention to some of the words of the masculine gender which ends with e kratki. So we already have a list of words such as muzye, tramvai and cry. So muzye changes into muzye, so e kratki changes and replaced by ye. Tramvai also replaced by ye at the end. So in place of e kratki, it changes with ye, and in case of cry, it is also replaced by ye. So muzye changes into muzye. Tramvai changes into tramvai. Cry changes into cry. So there is a difference between the usage of such kind of words. The ending changes. However, the usage of these three words, we always use the preposition va. Now let's go ahead and pay attention to the next list. Here you can see for masculine singular nouns with ending in e kratki. So what kind of word do we have? We have sanatori. Sanatori changes into sanatori. So e kratki replaced by e and e. Sanatori. So we have the predlog va and sanatori remains sanatori. However, the ending changes from e kratki to e. Sanatori. Sanatori in the sanatorium. So now let's go ahead and pay attention to some of the words of the feminine gender. Now we will see that how the ending of these words are changed when we pose the question gijya. So gijya vaza na aknya, na aknya. So in this case you can see that neuter gender words we are going to talk about. So akno changes it to aknya, but the predlog which we have is na. Likewise pismo, pismye, and more, na more, and opshe jiche, vapshe jiche. So for more, for C we have na. For pismo or the letter we have fa. For akno we have na. So akno and more, na. Pismo is va as well as opshe jiche is va. So now quickly read the sentences here. Gije fotografia, fotografia pisme. Gije ani addikhayt letam, ani addikhayt na more. Gije живет ваш друг, мой друг живет в общежитии. So here you can see the difference, especially when we have the words of neuter gender. Now we will discuss about some of the words of the feminine gender and see the difference. So now let's pay attention to some of the words of the neuter gender and see when usage of predlog or preposition, what kind of change do we see in them. Slova means word, slovie, slovie in the word. Pismo, letter, pisme in the letter. Kresla means armchair, kresle in the armchair. Akno, window, na akne on the window. So it is absolutely clear when and where to use the preposition va and na. Now let's go ahead and pay attention to a few more such words of the neuter gender. Cafe. So words which ends with a, cafe, in the cafe. Pole, field, na pole, on the field. More means sea, na more, so at the sea or on the sea. Now let's go ahead and pay attention to some of the words of neuter gender like общежитие, общежитие. Где он живет? В общежитии. Hostel. Where does he live? He lives in the hostel. Здание, building, в здании. Где живут ваши родители? Мои родители живут в большом здании. So my parents live in the big building. Zdanie. And then we have the last word is zadanie, means task. So zdanie and zadanie. Zadanie means task. Zadnani, the task. At the task or in the task. You can also differentiate like that. Now let's go ahead and say these words of the neuter gender like palto, palto, taxi, taxi. So this is the basic difference. How do we place the preposition in different kind of words of the neuter gender. Now let's go ahead and pay attention to important aspect that for means of transport like taxi, poise, autobus, etc. preposition na is used. So gije avi na taxi. I am in the taxi, I am in the train, I am on the train, I am in the plane, I am on the bus. So these kind of prepositions are used to describe certain means of transport like taxi, poise and autobus. So these kind of means of transport like taxi, poise, autobus, preposition na is used. Na taxi indicates in, whereas na indicates by. So please pay attention to the sentence in order to understand it properly. Мы ездили в Москву на поезде. We went to Moscow by train. So na поезде means by train, by means of, and поезде мы долго разговаривали. We had a long conversation inside the train. So in the train we used the preposition were. So this is the basic difference. How do we use na and what does it mean, and were and how does it gives an expressions to the sentence. So I hope this is clear to you all. Now we will go ahead and pay attention to some of the words of the feminine gender, singular nouns, and when they are used in the preposition kin, what kind of difference do we see. So we have nouns like Balnitsa, Fabrika, Pochta, Komnata, Moskva, America, Shkola, Dеревня and Statya. Balnitsa means hospital, changes into Balnitse, in the hospital. Fabrika, as we know, like Zavod, Stadion, it is also in na. Na fabrike, factory, at the factory. Pochta, we know, means post office, na pochte, at the post office. Komnata, we already know, means room, komnate, in the room. Moskva, Moscow, Moskve, in Moscow, because it is a name of a place, town, country, we always use verb. America, в Америке, школа, в школе, деревня, деревня, in статья, в статье. So ya is replaced by ye. I hope this is clear to you all. Now let's go ahead and pay attention to some of the words of the feminine gender in что and in где format. So we have auditoria, fotografia, historia, lecția, conferenția, India, Russia, Finlandia, Dania, Japonia. So let's see what is the difference. In auditoria ends with ya, changes into auditori. So ya is replaced by e, as we have discussed it. So auditorium changes into the auditorium, in auditorium. Fotografia means photograph, changes into photography, in photograph. Historia changes into story. History changes into in history. Lecția changes into na lecții. lecture changes into at the lecture. Gdzie wash druk сейчас, мой друг сейчас на лекции. Where is your friend right now? My friend is at the lecture right now. Конференция means conference, на конференции. Где делегация? Where is the delegation? Делегация сейчас на конференции. The delegation is at the conference right now. Индия. Где живут много людей? Много людей живут в Индии. Where does many people live? Many people live in India. Россия. Россия очень большая страна. В России живут много людей. Russia is a very big country. In Russia there are many people live. Finlandia, Finlandia, name of a country. Dania of Dani, again name of a country. And Japonia of Japoni. So the same is the case with Russia, India, Finlandia, Dania and Japonia. We know it already. So now we will go ahead and pay attention to some of the words of the feminine gender which ends with soft sign. Earlier we have seen some of the words which ends with soft sign, but they belong to the masculine gender. In this case we are going to have this. Like in the previous case, masculine gender words which ends with soft sign like partfel, partfele. However, in this case, if it is a noun of a feminine gender with the help of any pradlog or preposition, the soft sign will go away and replace with e in place of ye, as in case of masculine gender we have seen. So Chitraj, Chitraji, Ploshaj, na Ploshaji. So I hope this concept is also clear to you all. Now let's go ahead and pay attention to some of the words of the masculine gender which are exceptional. So how do they change with prepositions? Les, lisu, sad, sadu, shkaf, shkafu, ug, uglu, pol, napalu, bereg, na beregu, most, namastu. So this is a list of exceptional words which change like this when used with prepositions. For example, les means forest, lisu, sad means garden, sadu, and many more such words which you can see here are changing, but they are called the exceptions in Russian. So please remember all these. We will be discussing about such words and other expressions in dedicated sessions where we will take up more case system and many other concepts. So in this module we have seen how do we use certain nouns of the masculine, feminine and neuter gender and how do they change in case of usage of the preposition. In the preposition case, when we frame the question of где. As you already know the usage of different 6 type of cases in the case system of Russian, we will be discussing about them in detail in the next module. I hope you all enjoyed this module. Thank you.